Number one, we're looking for character. Are you a good kid? The reason for that is because we travel. We go a lot of different places. I need to
Well,
know.
hold on, Coach. I gotta interject here. What
Uh-huh.
if you're a really good kid but you're slow?
Then I'm
What if
not
you're a
looking.
really good kid but you can't throw or you
See,
can't
I was
jump?
under the impression that we're talking about college track here. So you must
No, we
already
are
be.
talking about but we also talked about expectations earlier. So there's a lot of good kids out there. So really,
Right.
what are you looking for?
All right. So I guess let's rewind a little bit. Number one, can you do the event that you say you can do? Are you proficient in it? Are you, do you have a reasonable time?
Welcome to How Tall Will They Be? This is the greatest show in the world. And is there anything to justify that? No. So we don't even try to answer the questions of the title of the show because we don't know how tall they're going to be. But this show is about youth sports, recruiting, athletics. It's really for the people who are in the car on the way to some obscure gym, field, competition on a Friday that's not going to end till a Sunday. But we want to talk to people who are talking from what they know, not what they heard. So today's guest extraordinaire is John Osborne III. He is the assistant track and field coach at Pfeiffer University. He is also the assistant cross-country coach at Pfeiffer University. In addition to being a coach, he also was a sprinter at UNC Charlotte, played football at Fayetteville State, was a receiver and sprinter at Victory Christian School, and just an all-around amazing athlete. John, how you doing today?
And we're doing all right. We enjoying the day. We fresh off the track, and excited to sit here and have a good conversation with you.
Absolutely. So, John, as I mentioned in the intro, this show is about giving people real life advice. But before we get into that advice, before we get into those stories, we want to get into who you are and your history as an athlete and how you got to where you are today. So what is your earliest memory of sports or as an athlete? What's your earliest athletic memory?
Oh, the earliest, probably T-ball. And I had
You
to be
remember
maybe,
T-ball?
I do remember T-ball, right?
Okay. Tell us
I don't
about
remember,
T-ball.
I don't remember the team name, but I know our jersey was red and white, and that was about all I can remember from there.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess your memories would be just hitting the ball off the tee, running, and then your parents fussing you out because you're not running to the correct base. So
Got
you,
you.
you just want to hit it and run and play around.
So what's your earliest memory of athletic success? Like when did you realize, oh, I'm good. Oh, I like this.
Let's see. That would probably have been, I would say, my seventh grade year. I
Okay.
played for the Southwest Eagles, which is right over there at Kennedy Middle School, and the Charlotte Mecklenburg was what do they call it, the CMEC League back then.
Okay.
The very first year we played, we went maybe like 1-10. We lost almost every game possible,
Hmm.
and then the following season, we figured out what we were doing, and then we realized that nobody could really catch me.
Okay.
So we had countless touchdowns and plenty of great football games against good guys. And after that year, I kind of knew that football might be my thing.
So football was your sport growing up, or you played other things, were good at other things growing up?
So initially, I played like t-ball, and baseball was really my first sport, my first true love when it came to sports.
And what role did your parents play in getting you into sports, making you love sports, or making you hate sports?
Parents played a huge role. They didn't really give me much of an opportunity. I was not going to sit in the house. Whether I play organized sports or in the park, I was going to be doing something, and I was going to be getting out of the house.
Okay.
So yeah, my father, he pushed me to try every different sport he could think of, whether or not it was baseball, basketball. I was always doing something. I never really had any downtime throughout the year.
Now, did your mother and father approach it the same way, or no?
No, my father was more so, you're just gonna get it done. I don't care if it's good, bad, or indifferent, hot, cold, and raining. You're gonna get it done. My mother on the opposite side, the complete opposite. I don't want my baby playing football. He might get hurt. It's too cold outside. He needs an extra coat. So both of which was needed, just to make sure that we was okay, but completely different views.
And so we've talked about the early memories. Now let's talk about high school. Let's talk about what you did there. In our research for the show, we found your highlight tape, your football highlight tape from high school. A lot of
Okay.
nine routes, a lot of go routes, a little bit of
Have
speed
some
on
good
you
things.
apparently. So, but tell us about, well, number one, how did you pick a high school? Did you go to a private school? Were you recruited? Um, or did you go to a public school? Tell us about high school.
So high school was more so picked by my parents.
Okay.
I went to Victory Christian, and I kind of grew up at Victory Christian. So I went to elementary school there, I went to middle school there, and I went to high school there. I didn't really have much of an option as to what high school I was going to go to, even though I tried to switch schools.
Hmm.
Tried to go to Olympic one year, and mother, what she just wasn't having it. So I ended up at Victory all years, every year, no matter what.
And what did you play at Victory?
So Victory, I started off playing baseball. I played baseball my ninth, 10th, and 11th grade years, and played JV basketball. I don't think I ever really fell in love with basketball enough to play varsity.
Hmm.
So beginning of the year it would be football to basketball to baseball and track season, and that
So
was how my year was set up.
you did baseball and track at the same time.
At the same time, I would play center field, and then once the 100 would come up, I would go run 100, and then go back to the baseball field. I was like the first coming to Dion, or I wouldn't say the first coming, but a high school version of Dion. I just didn't
High
know
school
it.
version of Dion. I'm guessing that football and track were your best sports, right? So, what was your most memorable high school experience highlight from that time?
Let's see. So I guess I would go. You said football and track, so I guess I would go with track first. We got a few good memories. One of them, we ran that. Matter of fact, your favorite school. We was racing at Charlotte Latin. Um, we was racing there, and one of the guys back then, his name was Ross. I forget his last name, but his sister, she's running the Olympics now too. Ross Cockrell. So we was racing against them faithfully. Him, John Wall, and a lot of other really talented athletes that came through the league at that time of the year. Being able to compete against some of the best athletes, I would say, is one of my best experiences. But also winning states in track and field was great. Being able to come back and win the hundreds and win the 200 was just an all-around great feeling after you put forth a lot of effort into those seasons. Being able to come out with a trophy or a medal is nothing short of amazing.
Okay. And you're progressing through high school, you're doing well. Let's talk about your junior and senior year. Let's talk about recruiting. I mean, that's the general point of this show. A lot of parents say, I just want my kid to get a free education. We'll come back to that later. But let's talk about your recruiting process. How did you get recruited? How did you decide what sport or sports you were going to do? How did you decide what school you were going to go to?
So initially, um, I had UNC Charlotte came up to me first. It was maybe the first person I spoke to. My old coach, his name was Coach Vault. He came up to me one day. Either he came to a meet or ran into him somewhere. He basically told me like, "Hey John, I think you should be running track. And UNC Charlotte, we always gonna give you the opportunity to run." I said, "Coach, no thanks. I'm a football guy. I'm
Okay.
going to get a scholarship to go play football somewhere." And at the time, they didn't have football to even offer, so it wasn't really like on my radar because I wanted to play football no matter what. So then I ended up going through a recruiting process, which was a little bit different than what it is now. We had to go out to different camps and all these different things to try to get your name out there in front of the coaches. So you would drive around the country. I think we rode to Indiana, we rode to Missouri, we rode to Virginia Tech, we rode to a lot of different places. Me and quarterback Josh Byram and a couple other receivers, we would travel to these different camps, these different places to try to get as much exposure as possible.
Okay. And I mean, tell us about those exposure camps. What did you do? Were you a running back? Were you a receiver? Were you a DB? How did you
Yeah,
figure
so
out what was going to be your angle?
I knew I was fast, and I knew no one could really catch me. So I always just kind of gravitated towards the receiver position.
Hmm.
Although I did play, defensive back and safety, it wasn't really a love of mine. The receiver catching the ball and being able to run past people is kind of what I enjoyed. So I knew receiver was going to be it. If I had any opportunity, I wasn't the biggest guy in the world. Right under 6 feet tall, right under 170 pounds. There's only a few only a few positions you're going to be able to play at the next
Okay.
level.
Okay. And so you go to Missouri, you're going to Indiana, you're going to all these camps. When did the offers start coming in?
The offer started coming in late, super late, like February 4th was signing day, and we was literally finding out this information on February 2nd, February 3rd, through the guidance counselor. I think I
Okay.
may even been so I ended up signing to Fayetteville State to go play football, but we visited Fayetteville probably months before that. So I had no idea they was even truly interested to that extent. So I may have been sitting in class, I believe it was science class with Miss Williams, and my guidance counselor, she comes running in the room like, "Hey John, I got Fayetteville on the phone. What you think about this?" And mind you, this is like a day or two before signing day. She's like, "Do you want to go to Fayetteville?" I'm like, "I guess I ain't got much of an option right now. I want to play football." We're 2 days before signing day, and I'm like, "Look, I guess I'm going to Fayetteville." And then me, my running back, and my old lineman, we all signed to Fayetteville at that same time.
Okay. So let's go back, right? Was Fayetteville the only offer that you had, or
Fayetteville was the only offer that I knew about at that time. Um, Later on down the line, we figured out that I did get offers from Ball State and Missouri to go play football. And at the time, a lot of the information that was being relayed went through the coaches. And somehow the information was either withheld or I just didn't receive it. So I had no idea that we had those other offers at the time, because then my whole life would probably be completely different. I probably would have been playing at Ball State or Missouri out there in the middle of the country.
so when you went to Fayetteville, you didn't run track at all?
No, because Fayetteville told me that they were in the process of getting a track team.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to be able to go to Fayetteville State and do both.
Okay.
And when I got to Fayetteville, I realized that there was no track. It was just football, which I was fine with. You know, I enjoy football. We played football freshman year. We was able to win the CIAA championship. We had a few really talented guys on the team. I think a few of them even had a shot at playing in the NFL. So we had a really talented team. Even though people say it's Division II football, they look at Division II football like we were subpar. And in reality, most of our teams, you know, they played Division I at some point in time and just dropped down. So there was the drop off in talent wasn't really what I expected at a Division II program. The guys were good.
Let's talk about that for a second, though. A lot of parents, and we mentioned we would come back to this. A lot of parents say, "I just want to get my child a college education," right?
Correct.
I think at the end, that is the case, right? When the child is a senior, when the child is a post grad, they just want the scholarship wherever it
Mm-hmm.
comes from. I'm of the mind that when people say that when a child is 9, 10, 11 years old, no, you want to see your child on TV. You want to see
Right.
your child at the biggest stages. You want to see your child at the UNCs if they play basketball, or Duke if they play basketball, or the SEC if they play football, the Big Ten if they play football, right? You just mentioned that D2 level is not a huge drop off. So I guess that's two questions. Number one, were you disappointed that it wasn't a Division I offer? And number two, what would you tell the parents about the different divisions as it relates to college and specifically college football?
Yeah, I would say initially I was a little disappointed, but still given the opportunity to play football, that kind of changed my viewpoint on it a little bit. Like, look, I'm still going to play college football. We still got the big stadium. We still got the large fan base. We're at a HBCU. So, I think it kind of turned from kind of like, dang, I missed out to I'm glad I made it here. And I'm glad I had this opportunity at this level. And I'm glad I went to the HBCU to experience the different cultures and then what it meant to go to a school like that. Because that was never on my radar. I always wanted to go to the Wake Forest of the world or Clemson. That was what I wanted in my heart. But Fayetteville State ended up being the best place for me at the time.
So when did that shift occur? Like when you said, "I'm glad I made it here."
I would say when I got on the field and I realized football is football. We're out here. I got my helmet. We got our shoulder pads on. We're in the dog days of Fayetteville State heat, where we got turf stadium or turf fields, metal bleachers. It's 100 or so degrees outside. We're running around and we're out there. We truly enjoying practice. And I'm like, wow, this is still what I wanted. I just didn't know.
I think that's great advice or great insight to a lot of people. But you didn't finish at Fayetteville State, if I'm correct, right?
No, didn't finish at Fayetteville State. There's a
Okay.
few
What
different
made
reasons.
you transition, and where did you go after that?
So the initial thought of me transferring was not even in my head at the time. But then I had one of the guys. He came up to me. I ain't gonna lie. He came up. His exact words. He was like, "Hey, Ozzy, you're really talented, right? This may not be the best school for you right now because of the simple fact that and this is one of the athletes that was talking to me because my coach had transferred. So my coach Maynard at the time, he transferred and went to Winston-Salem State.
Hmm.
So at the time, I was like, you know what? Maybe you're right. So I really like his style of play. So I'm like, well, let me just transfer to Winston-Salem State, which is D2 to D2. But I guess I waited too long to be able to actually reach out to Coach Maynard and Winston-Salem State and say, hey, let me transfer. And they said, hey, John, where are you going to sit out a year? I said, well, hey, I really don't want to sit out a year. Like, that's a long time to be out of sports. So then I called North Carolina Central, and we talked to Coach Risen for a little while, and I was going to transfer from Fayetteville State to go play football at North Carolina Central because in my head, I'm still a football player. But then Coach Risen got fired. So now I'm kind of like sitting back rethinking the situation. I'm like, okay, North Carolina Central, that's a whole new situation now. I don't even know that guy at all. My coach is gone. And then I remember the words that the one recruiter, Coach Vault, told me at the time, like, hey, if you ever need an opportunity to come run track at Charlotte, let me know. I got on the website. He was still the coach. So, hey, I reached out to him. Like, hey, I know you told me this 2 years ago, but does that still stand? Can I get a spot on the team? Like, I still got my track times, all that. I'm a little bit heavier now, but, the ability is there. Like, and he said, John, like I told you before, I got a spot for you. So he opened that door up, and then that's more so how I ended up at Fayetteville.
At Fayetteville or at UNC Charlotte? Okay, at UNC Charlotte. Okay.
So it wasn't my first choice. It was really my third choice.
But I talk about how relationships matter, and even short interactions or short relationships in the past can impact you in the future. Because it sounds like the name is Coach Vault.
Yeah, Coach Vault.
So Coach Vault met you 2 years previous, 3 years previous. I'm guessing that you guys didn't chat every single day for 2 years.
No, I probably never spoke to him again.
Okay. But what is the importance of always putting a good foot forward and developing a good relationship and leaving a good mark on people?
Yeah, it meant everything. Like I said, we may have had that conversation for maybe 5 seconds. I might call him right now and say, hey, Coach Vault, do you remember this? He might not even remember it. But me being 16, 17 years old, it stuck with me. I'm like, well, that's still a nice school. It's still a big school. And I remembered it. It never, ever faded. I'm telling you, the conversation couldn't have been very long. But that relationship, it meant everything to me at the time.
And so you get to UNC Charlotte and you're a big football player. And so then what happens next?
So now I'm on campus, and I actually transferred in the middle of the year. So I played 2 football seasons at Fayetteville State. Once that season ended in the fall, I transferred to UNC Charlotte for the spring semester. So now I'm transferring, which is directly in the smack dab middle of track season. They've already competed in their first indoor meet, and now I'm on campus. So now I have to catch up. I really got to rely on my athletic abilities to try to get there. And then what Vault didn't tell me was that just because you're on the team does not mean that you're going to travel all the time. He didn't tell me that part.
Well, talk about that. What does that mean? Because again, this is for the athletes coming up that may not understand the inside game. So what does that mean?
So in order to travel, you have to be the top such and such. So say UNC Charlotte will travel with maybe 4 or 5 sprinters, or however many sprinters they're traveling with. You have to be in that top group of athletes to travel to these different meets. So come indoor season, I'm trying to get in shape. I'm doing what I can do. And now I'm realizing that once again, I might be like, this situation might not be the best situation for me because these guys are so fast. And I feel like now I'm heavier. I'm far behind now. How long is it going to take me to catch up to these guys? Like when I got there, Sam Jordan was there, and he's running 6'6", 6'7" in the 60-meter dash. And I'm sitting back looking like, yo, this is amazing. Like, I know I ain't that fast. Right. So, but to be able to make that travel team, it was tough. You had to beat out guys who had been training for not 1 year, but 3 or 4 years in college. And that's no easy feat because they want it just as bad as you do.
Got it.
So we trained. I made a couple of indoor meets, but then come the indoor conference meet that very first year, I didn't travel. They left me at conference. For the conference track meet, I got left. And I told my father, like, man, this will never happen again. So we transitioned to outdoor, and I never missed another meet nowhere after that one. That was my one and only major meet that I missed due to not being, good enough or in shape enough.
So why, I guess a simple question, why not quit? Why not transfer? A lot of times today, even on the youth level, If a player
Hmm.
gets cut, if a player gets doesn't start or doesn't get the position that they want,
Right.
they leave,
Yeah, they
right?
transfer to different
You know
schools
why?
with different teams.
Why? Where did this nobility come from? Why stay? Why not go somewhere else and be like, nah, I'm gonna run here.
Yeah, like I said, my father was, father was a military guy. So instead of really running from stuff, we typically run to it. So if there's guys here who's better than me, that's understandable. You're not always going to be the best athlete wherever you go, but what you can do is work harder than everybody, and then whatever happens happens in between. Like that's out of your control. I put forth the effort. If I so happen to get better than you, then boom, now I'm better than you. Um, so I went into kind of more so with the football mentality, like you guys are not better than me. I'm going to take your spot. Like this right here, I'm not getting left no more. I can promise you that. So whatever happens, happens, and I'm not transferring no more. Like that wasn't the option. I'm at the Division 1 level. We're running track. I'm good. I like the school. I like the environment. Now everything else is up to me. Like I must get better because I was barely good enough to really be at UNC Charlotte. So where else am I transfer to? Like I can't call the Virginia Tech coach like, hey, let me transfer to you, and I wasn't transferring back down nowhere. Like this is it. Like I got to make this work.
I respect it, and I hope others do too. Um, so you're running with UNC Charlotte. What are some highlights of that time? Did you win any championships? Did you set any records? Top 10 lists, things like that.
Yeah. So UNC Charlotte, we got a chance to run at the regional track meet up at Indiana University. My very first outdoor season. We ran the 4x1 relay. It was me, Reggie, Darius Law, Sam Jordan, and that right there was an amazing, probably one of the better experiences, especially with that being my first experience at a large meet like that. To be able to get out there and compete, I think we may have finished. We definitely wasn't top because we didn't qualify for nationals that year. I forget the exact placement, but we still may have finished like 15th or 16th in the country, which is, hey, that's not bad for a kid who's just fresh off the football field.
Right.
Then that year, I believe we also followed up with the Atlantic 10 championship. So at the time, the Atlantic 10, it changes so much. But you had schools like maybe Duquesne, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, schools down that side we was all in the same conference.
Okay. So it sounds like you just had a successful time at UNC Charlotte. And how long were you at UNC Charlotte?
So I actually ran track for 4 years at UNC Charlotte. One
Okay.
of the few guys who I played 2 years of football and 4 years of track, all within 5 years.
Got you. And what was your major at UNC Charlotte?
So funny story. Initially, my major was exercise science, and the way the UNC Charlotte program was set up, you had to pass a lot of the same requirements that nursing school had to pass. So in order for me to get into the kinesiology program, I had to get accepted and pass chemistry. So me and chemistry did not get along very well. I can't even lie. That was the only class that kind of gave me trouble in college was that chemistry. So couldn't pass chemistry. So then I ended up signing up for psychology and criminal justice. So that's what I ended up finishing my degree in.
Okay. So psychology, criminal justice, a A10 championship, a couple records at the school. So not a bad time, right?
No, we had an amazing time at UNC Charlotte.
But then what? Right? So now you're done, you got your degree. Now what? Are you going to the Olympics? Are you trying to go and get in the Diamond League? What is your plan?
So when I first got to Charlotte, I kind of, I always like sitting back and kind of trying to watch. I love making decisions from everyone else's mistakes. I don't want to be the one to make the mistake. I rather learn from somebody else's.
Okay.
So I was kind of sitting down there on campus, looking and learning and trying to figure out, kind of what to do after you graduate. My times are getting really, really fast. But like I said, I went to nationals, and me seeing that next group of athletes that was coming up, that next 1% of the 1% of athletes, they was just so far ahead of where I was at the time. I'm like, man, there's no way I'm about to make the Olympics if these guys are not even barely making it yet. Like the reality was, it was time to kind of focus on making some money, and getting prepared for the next level of life, which wasn't necessarily me competing for track at the time. So I ended up working.
So was that hard? Because you had been a successful athlete
Mm-hmm.
since T-ball, right?
Right.
And now you are looking at it and saying, "Oh my goodness!" Right? The next step is just not really there for me. Was that a challenge for you to make that adjustment to
Um,
working?
the first 3 to 4 months or so, I was fine. I'm like, okay, cool. You see the paychecks coming through. Like, okay, this is nice. This is nice. But then the longer it went, I'm like, man, I used to tell Catherine, like, man, something's wrong. Something's missing. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's sports. Let me go work out. Right.
Wait, hold on. You got to
I'll go.
introduce the people to Catherine. The
Oh,
the
okay.
people listen, they don't know who's Catherine.
So Catherine is my wife pretty much since 2009.
Okay.
So we met at Fayetteville State, very first class. We met there. We probably started dating a few months after that. And we kind of been rocking out ever since 2009. We got married in 2016, and we have two beautiful kids. And we're still together right now.
Oh well, good for you. But all right, you're talking about work and that transition. How the first couple months were okay, but then what happened after those first couple months?
Like you start feeling like something's not right, something's missing. And me being a competitor that I am, I was like, well, maybe let me find something I can compete in. So I was trying to use work as that competition to get better and be the best version of work I could be. But I realized that wasn't really what I was missing. I didn't really, your work was work, but I was missing the competition aspect of everything. So I was just struggling as to kind of what to do. I would go out, I would help my father and his little league football team out sometimes. And I'm like, okay, this ain't bad. But then my phone started ringing. I'm like, can you help me train? I'm like, you know what? First I told everybody no, because I'm like, I've been doing this forever. Let me sit back and enjoy this time. But they just kept calling, kept calling, kept calling. So I'm like, you know what? Come on. So I went out here with like 2 or 3 kids, and then I realized at that time that that was probably what I was missing. So you went from competing for myself to helping everyone else compete. So now it's actually better because now I can compete through 100 different athletes or however many people I'm training. So now they're all competing. And I can sit back and like, look, all right, cool, you got good training. That's It's more rewarding to be able to give back to the community that I grew up in.
So does it? Okay, so you start to fill that void by training people, and what are you training them in? Track and field, football, t-ball. What are you training them in?
So I went essentially track and field first. Football was kind of there. I would help out, but it wasn't like something I was real serious at. I could do it, but I don't know, I just enjoyed track a little bit more.
Okay, so you're training track and field athletes. Um, does it is it tough to embrace the fact that you cannot control their success? Meaning, when you were running, you could take the baton in your hand, and whatever you did was the outcome, right?
Hmm.
You could hear the gun at the start, and whatever you did after the gun started was the outcome. Was it a challenge? Now the outcome is not in your hands.
It was a challenge, but that was what I was missing.
Okay.
So the challenge being able to figure out how does this kid respond, whether or not it's what I say to him, is it the workout that I give to him, is it his situation at home, like how does this kid respond? And like my psychology background, it just makes me interested in that side. Like let's try to figure out how to make this work. So then I started seeing myself connect. Like okay, cool. Like I got you now. So if I tell you this, then you do it like this, and then you see it translate and track me. Like cool, I like this, and then you start seeing them become more successful. Not necessarily because of the workouts, but because of the understanding that I have for the kids, and it starts clicking. So then year number one, take 3 kids, and I think all 3 make nationals.
Wait, so are you taking them independent, or did you start an organization?
Okay, well, so initially we were independent.
Okay.
So the very first bit of training, we were independent. I think we even ran in the first couple of track meets as unattached.
Okay.
So I was just training. I wasn't really worried about nothing. But now I'm being exposed to the new world, the new AAU world, because I didn't run AAU. I only ran school track. So now I'm out here. I'm looking at all these cool jerseys. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. I'm like, oh man, we missing out. Like we are missing out. Like let's come up with a name. So me and Catherine, we sitting down there playing around, and I think even Andrews. I even asked him. I was training Andrews' kids at the time.
Again, you got to tell the people who is Andrews.
So Andrews is a guy who grew up on the south side of Charlotte. Well, he grew up on the south side of Charlotte, but he's been on the south side of Charlotte for a long time. Him and my father actually connected through their youth football program first, and that's kind of how I met him initially. And then from there, we always cool. We just talk, laugh, figure it out. and he was the one who asked me about his kids training
Okay.
because he personally knew, and he seen me grow over the years. So he's like, "Hey, John, no, I need you. I need you." And at hang time I told him no. He's like, "John, I need you to help me." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So we made it work. He was really one of the reasons why I even began coaching track. He may not know it, but me training his kids got me, it helped me understand the love that I had for the sport outside of me competing.
So, what is the name of your team? You're not gonna
Oh,
tell
yeah.
the people. You're gonna hide it from the people.
Well, you got to build up anticipation, right? So we came up with the name, the Carolina Blaze Youth Development. And a lot of times people, they don't understand, or they don't even hear the backside of it. They just hear Carolina Blaze, but the youth development part comes in play because that's really what I want the kids to do. You got to develop from being a kid to being your own man. So that's where the whole name came from. Carolina Blaze is what's on the jerseys, but if you look on all the record books and everything, you see the full name, Carolina Blaze Youth Development. And then, hopefully one of my initial things is be able to build an area and build a center for the athletes as well. I haven't made it there yet, but in due time, we're going to make it to where we have the Carolina Blaze Youth Development Center. And that's one of my goals that I've been trying to work towards. And
Okay.
that's since 2017. That's since the very beginning.
Well, we'll have to put a link in the bio for the podcast so that people can donate to the Carolina Blaze Youth Development Center.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about the Carolina Blaze Youth Development Team. How big are you now? Are you still at about 3 kids? Are you big? Are people winning? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we started in 2017 with those 3 athletes. We may have finished that year with maybe 4 or 5. They were all related. Everybody was brothers, sisters, and cousins. And
Okay.
that's literally where we started. And from there, I kind of liked that feel or the theme. So I always made sure that I never really advertised. I just made sure that whoever came to the team was a family-oriented person who understood that, hey, I'm just a coach. I'm not really trying to run a huge organization here. I just want to help your kids get better. So that very first year, we went from 3 kids. We practiced at an Olympic high school, like kind of in a cut. And then after that, I realized, okay, well, we might need to get a location to actually practice at because the following year we may have had a little bit more interest. It may have doubled up from maybe 3 or 4 kids to maybe about 7 or 8. Everybody's still related. So now we got people like classmates and brothers and sisters, like all kind of still connected in some way or another. So we moved the team up to Victory Christian Center, and we was there for maybe 2 to 3 years, kind of getting started, trying to figure out what to do and how to help the kids. Till maybe in 2020 was COVID year. We thought about changing the name from the Carolina Blaze to the Southwest Athletic Group, SWAG, because we was on the south side of Charlotte. It was us and maybe 5 or 6 other teams. We tried to do that, but COVID hit, so I guess God had other plans. That didn't work. So then we went right back to the Carolina Blaze. We were still at Victory Christian with maybe 15 to 20 kids. But then I ended up getting the job over at the new Palisades High School. And that kind of like opened the doors and propelled the team to new heights. We went from 15 to 20 kids to having upwards of 50 athletes signing up. And once again, everyone is still connected. Everyone is still family oriented. So I really enjoyed watching the team grow the right way. Still to this day, don't advertise. Like if somebody on the team doesn't know you, then you probably have never heard about the team outside of getting beat by them.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, when you guys go to competitions, are you bringing medals home? Do you have anybody who's nationally ranked? How do you stack up?
Yeah, so I would say we stack up with any AAU team in the country. My first All-American was, we call it Shuby. She actually, at the 9-year-old age group, she actually won high jump she was number 1. Like, she was the most respected 9-year-old girl I've ever seen. It didn't matter what track meet we went to. They was like, oh my God, she's here. I know we're not going to win. So I'm like, wow, this is getting impressive. And then her brothers, they will qualify for nationals. They will finish top 10, top 12 in the country. And then going forward, the most recently, over the last 4 years, we've seen tremendous growth. We got Aaron. We met him, the guy who's on the podcast with us. We met him. We met him in the neighborhood, and he had an athlete, his son, who's also now one of the top throwers and shot putters in the nation as we speak right now. So congratulations, to Aaron for giving us the opportunity.
You don't have to speak about me in the third person, man. I'm right here.
No, congratulations. Like congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, then we do have a few more nationally ranked athletes. Maybe I want to say we have maybe 5 to 8 All Americans over these last 8 years, and probably I did the numbers the other day. It was about 77 athletes who's qualified for the Junior Olympics over all the years.
Wow. That's a really good hit rate for a smaller program that's new,
Right.
right? And so talk about the parental side. You're now a organizer, you're a president of the organization, which means that you have to deal with all the things off the track, all the things that don't have to do with competition. You've got to deal with parents and expectations and injuries and collecting money and travel and all that stuff. Talk about how that plays into today's society where parent expectations are impactful to youth athlete outcomes.
Right. Yeah, parent relationships are they probably matter just as much as my relationship does to the athlete. The reason why I say that is one, we do spend a lot of time with the athletes, so the parents have to kind of trust that their athlete is getting the proper training and just being around really good people in general. Because whenever you're dealing with kids in any aspect, then you're leaving some impression on them, whether or not it's good, bad, or indifferent. So the parents want their athletes to be impressed, the most. And what was the other half of that question? I forgot.
Just the impact of parent actions and expectations on youth athlete outcomes.
So some parents have unrealistic expectations, and other parents they don't understand that what their athlete is. So it's kind of two different spectrums. I've had plenty of athletes come up to us and say, "Coach, I just want to get faster," and the parents are like, "All right, coach, you got him. He's not really a track athlete. Let me know if you need something." Right. And then 4 or 5 months later, when their kid is qualifying for nationals, they're confused because they didn't really have expectations for their athlete. They just wanted him to get better. Then you got the other ones who athletes
Well,
may
before
not.
you get into the other side, I admit I fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
For all of our listeners unaware, my child does run and throw with the Carolina Blaze. That's actually how I met Coach John. And I am guilty of what he just described. Our very first year, my son was doing well in the shot put and discus. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, your son is top 10 in the country." And I was dumbfounded. I was like, "What do you mean? Does that mean that all the other kids who were really good haven't started yet? Or like, is he actually good?" And Coach John was like, "No, he's good. He's really good."
Right.
But what I also will give Coach John credit for is he recognized that he was not a throwing coach, at least not at that time. Now, things have changed. He is a all things coach now, but he wasn't a throwing coach, and actually encouraged us and pointed us to somebody who has made an enormous difference. So I just wanted to put that in there before you go forward to the other side of parents who may be a little bit more optimistic about things.
Right. They definitely are optimistic, I would say. I've met few people. Obviously, we do our best to train everybody, but there's been some parents where they're just too overbearing to where after a practice or two, I will have a conversation with them like, "Hey, this may not be the team for you because you're right there. Like, do you want to coach? Like, if you want to coach and really be out here, then that's different. But if you just want to kind of coach from beyond the fence and tell everything that's wrong or what you're not doing right, like, that's not the type of environment that I'm trying to create. And your athlete is also not that good. So I do my best at being honest. Like, if you tell me that your athlete is a 100-meter runner and I'm looking at him and I say, "Ma'am, sir, whoever I'm speaking to, your child might be an athlete, but the 100 may not be his best race. Like, let's figure out where he works at. He might be better at the 800 or whatever." But a lot of times parents don't want to hear that their athlete is not what they think that they are. And just because a parent ran 100 doesn't necessarily mean the kid is going to run 100. And then sometimes they kind of battle with that. Everyone wants to run the 100, even though there's countless events. You can do 100, the long jump, and a lot of parents, they are literally just right there, right on the athletes. And it might pay off, it may not. But you got to be realistic with your athletes sometimes and let them know that, hey, you can keep doing this, but this might not be your best race, right?
Got it. But you talked about payoff, right? And for a lot of
Mhm.
parents, that payoff is the college scholarship. So let's talk about the hat and the shirt you're wearing and the place that you're at now. How
Right.
did you become a coach at Pfeiffer?
So it was actually a very interesting story. I've been coaching at the Palisades High School for the last 2 years, and I had every intention of going back for year year 3, year 4, and year 5 because we were starting to build a program. But just me out of my curiosity, year after year, I've always wanted to coach on a college level. So every year I would just kind of reach out to everybody, reach out to groups of people, go get training, go get certificates, and learn as much information as I could possibly learn. So we're like, I called one guy. He was like, "Hey, Pfeiffer is about to put up, or Pfeiffer's putting up a posting about their track coach. You know, he just stepped down or he got a new job somewhere else. I think you might be a good fit for that." I'm like, "Well, Pfeiffer sounds kind of far. Let me Google it to see how far it is." It was like, "Hey, it's about an hour." So I'm like, "That's not terrible. I might be able to make that work." So I reached out to the coach, Coach Marchenko, and we had a good conversation. Like, we was on the phone. We didn't even know the guy. We probably talked for 30 minutes on the phone the very first time. I'm like, "You know what? This might work." Like, we kind of clicked. So then we set up an interview. Came up here. We talked on the interview day for another 2 or 3 hours. Like, we was just talking track, and I don't know, I just felt in my heart of hearts that it clicked. But then I didn't hear nothing back for for 2 months. So I'm like, well, I guess a lot of time is going by. Let me start prepping for the high school season. So as we start prepping for the season, I get a phone call. Like, "All right." Like, "Hello." Like, "All right, John, are you ready?" Like, "Coach." It's good to hear from you too. But yeah, I'm ready. Like, he's like, "Hey, when can you come up? When can you get this paperwork done and signed and have everything finished up?" So it was really a 3 month process, and I just didn't know what the outcome would be at the end. So then the hard part was letting the high school kids know that, hey, Coach Osborne's not coming back. And after you build relationships with kids like that, you do become close with some kids. It's not all of them, but some kids you are closer than you are with other ones. So I had to let them know I wasn't coming back. That didn't go over too good, but I just sat down and explained to them, like, "Hey, you don't get too many opportunities to coach on a college level, and now I can help you guys better. Yeah, I'm not here training you. Your trainer's not going to drop off. You got Coach North. You got a lot of good athletes or good trainers down at the Palisades. So now I can help you, and I'm on the other side of the fence now. So if you're looking for recruiting, if you got questions, you got this, whatever you need, I should be able to at least find an answer for you." And how many high school athletes can really maybe reach out to their old coach, who's now another step higher, to be able to answer their questions about, maybe fast food or any basic recruiting questions. Like, hey, just ask and I'll figure it out.
No, that's real. And so congratulations on making that jump. Um, let's talk about recruiting though. What is it actually like? Now you are the person making the calls. Now you are the person looking at the profiles. Now you are the person, recommending the athletes for a scholarship. What is that like?
So I'm about, what, 2.5, maybe 3 months into this. So I'm sure if we had this conversation again in a few more months or years, it'd probably be completely different. But I do enjoy reaching out to the athletes. But I've reached out to countless athletes right now who I still haven't heard back from. So we are Division III. We don't necessarily offer athletic scholarships, but we do offer money. If you got good grades, you got academics, you got this, we offer different things. And I can't get in contact with a lot of kids to even let them know that we are trying to reach out to them. You can call the high school coach. The high school coach may not call back. All right, you can try to get on maybe Instagram or find another way of reach out to these kids. The kids don't check their Instagram pages, or you can't message them, or because they got everything blocked if you're not a friend. So in the day of age of technology, you would think it'd be extremely easy to get in contact with people. And for some reason, reaching out to people outside of your general network has been a little bit more difficult for me. May not be the same for everybody, but for me, that's been one of my harder tasks.
And what are you looking for? And I'm before I make an assumption, your assistant title is for both the men's and women's teams, correct? Both track and
Correct.
field and cross country?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're looking for a young man or young woman, what is it that you're looking for?
So number one, we're looking for character. Are you a good kid? The reason for that is because we travel. We go a lot of different places. I need to
Well,
know.
hold on, coach. I don't be. I gotta interject here. What
Uh-huh.
if you're a really good kid but you're slow?
then I'm
What if
not
you're a
looking.
really good kid but you can't throw
Well,
or you
see,
can't
I was
jump?
under the impression that we're talking about college track here, so you
Well,
must
no, we
already
are
be.
talking about but we also talked about expectations earlier. So there's a lot of good kids out there. So really,
Right.
what are you looking for?
All right. So I guess let's rewind a little bit. Number one, can you do the event that you say you can do? Are you proficient in it? Are you, do you have a reasonable time? Like I said, I do coach at the Division III level right now. So we may not necessarily get the same athletes as LSU would get. So we have to find the athletes that fits where we are and what we're doing. So if you 100-meter guy and you run 10.7 to 10.8, then yes, I'm calling you because I can develop you into anything. I just need you to get here.
Hmm.
Once you get here, now the sky is the limit. If you end up running 10.1 or 10.2, then hey, my job is done. So number one, yes, can you do your job?
Okay.
All right. Number two, are you a good kid? Like, can I trust you to be on campus with us? Can I trust you when we go outside of campus and we're traveling to these different states? Are you going to be where you're supposed to be at? I need to be able to know that's true. If I tell you to be in a room at 9 and don't leave the room, I need to know that you did it. Don't be trying to sneak out to the gas station or to the restaurant after I told you to go to sleep. And then the last one is we need GPA. Like I said, we're on the D3 level right now. So you must have grades.
Okay.
Like we need you to have grades. We can kind of wiggle it, we can wiggle it around a little bit, but we need good kids with decent grades.
Got you. So you got to be able to do your task. And in track, that is empirical, right? That's objective, not subjective. The numbers are out there, right? 100 meters in New York City is the same as 100 meters in Seattle, is the same as 100 meters in Dallas, right?
Right.
You have to be a good kid, as you mentioned. I shouldn't have to worry about you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have to have the grades,
Got to
right?
have the grades.
Okay, so I'm glad that we got all that out there because you were about to tell us just be real nice to people. Now you
Nah.
got to be able to perform. So
Yeah, that's
performance
it.
does matter. At some points, performance does matter. Is that fair to say?
It does. And track is a numbers game. So it's kind of hard to, it's not like football where it might be some politics involved into it. Not to say there's no politics involved on the track side, but typically if you run a 10-1, then you're going to get 10-1 schools reaching out to you because
Okay.
you ran their mark. Like that's their recruiting mark and they want you, right? They may not reach out. You might not hear from Georgia if you run a 10.7 or 10.8 as a guy in 100.
Hmm.
They may not reach out to you unless you so happen to know the dean or somebody like that down there, right? But you want scholarship money? Run your time, jump your time, or jump your mark.
Got it. So we're coming towards the end here, but I want to do a couple things before we get out of here. Number one, what is your best advice to a young athlete coming up who has hopes of going to college and playing their sport or doing their activity?
The number one advice I would give them is please, please, please do multiple multiple sports. If you're a football guy, then you should be out there playing basketball. You should be playing soccer. You should be running track. You should be doing other things than just focusing on football 24/7. Because the more of one event that you do, the more likely it is that you're probably going to end up hurt as you get older. You might not even be hurt in high school, but once you start getting to college and all these different levels, then the high chance of you being hurt is high. And I've seen a lot of people peak in 10th and 11th grade, and then they still might get a scholarship offer, and then they never ever run times that they ran in 11th grade.
Wow. Well, so what do you say to the high school coaches who might say, no, don't do multiple sports. I need you in my program. I've designed a program that
Mm-hmm.
wins, and I need you to do that 24/7, 365.
And I would say to the coach, that's a great program, and I'm glad he came up with it. And for the few athletes who will do that one sport for the whole year, stick with it and be fine. But most athletes, you need that range of motion. Like you need it. You need to be able to go sideways. Like if you train your whole life to be able to run forwards and then you run sideways one time and you tear your ACL in half, then hey, you should just probably started early. Like yeah, go side to
Okay,
side, play volleyball, do something different.
fair enough. What is your best advice to parents of athletes who want to see their child go to college?
Parents, let your kids be kids. Right? You train them, in season, let them practice, let them work out with the trainers, whoever they're working out with to gain the skills that you're trying to gain. Don't invest too much money. If a parent is spending $1,000 a month on training for a 7-year-old. If they continue at that same rate, they would have already paid for college. They could have just took half of that and put it in a savings account for the kid, and by the time they got of college age, they might already have college tuition saved up.
It's a tough thing for people to hear, but you're not lying.
Oh, save it. If you want to spend it, you might as well save it for the kid. At least that way, now you have a guaranteed way. Like, son, I can pay this 200,000 for your 4 years of college. Like, here, it's in your account. Go. If you want to run track, then all right, whatever scholarship money they're going to give you, use that, apply for FAFSA, and then whatever's left, I got you. I got your back. And that's good to be able to tell your kids versus, hey, son, I used to pay $1,000 a month, and now you don't even want to play the sport no more. Like, you've invested wrong.
That's a tough one, but no, that's good advice. And so the last thing before we get out, where can the people find you? Where can they get in touch with you? Tell us about Pfeiffer. Where can they learn about Pfeiffer? Let us know.
Yeah, I guess, well, they see my name down in the corner. I'm pretty much Speed Thrills 24/7 on all platforms. So follow me. You can find me there. You can find the links to the Pfeiffer recruitment questionnaires. You can find all of that on the Instagram page. Or if not, just get on Pfeiffer Athletics and go to the athletics page, and you can find all of my information on there as well.
Well, Coach John, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming. This has been How Tall Will They Be? Come check us out. We'll be talking about things that we don't know the answer to because we don't know how tall they're going to be.